Hey guys, you're back for the Outlander after show. Thank you for joining us. See you soon.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a little bit over a year.
A long time.
But Outlander Season 3 has finally started with the first episode, Battle Joined. I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow. And here's my fellow co-host.
I'm Emily Harlan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at OMG. It's MLE.
Yes. So, first thoughts.
Yeah, Droughtlander's over. I'm
Yeah.
so excited. It took a while for me to get into this episode just because I felt like it had been such a long time since we've seen anything from Outlander, so it took me a while to kind of remember exactly what was happening. I liked that they started it, kind of like right away. There was no kind of like easing in. It was like this is brutal, this is what happened. So it was, I think it kind of jumped me back in quickly. I liked the episode. I didn't think it was one that had a lot of moments where it was like, oh my God, a lot of twists and turns. But there were those moments where I'm kind of, was shocked what was happening or just seeing things unfold. So I liked it.
No, yeah, overall I really liked it as well. I think they did a really good job of, I could tell, I was like, it's a budget reason for how the Battle of Culloden was shot, but overall I really enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed seeing, something in my eye, what was going on with Claire in the future, or in the past, our past, her future.
Yeah.
Anyways, so overall it was nice to see how far they had come, and I did notice that there was a slight change in how we're tracking Jamie versus how we're tracking Claire. So it seems like his time is going a little bit slower and hers is a bit faster.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how they're going to combine those. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to come back. Yeah, it's been a long time.
I know.
So I had to kind of be like, I got to remember what this is about and this was about. So
Yeah.
I guess let's just go ahead and start with Claire's storyline. So she's back in 1948, and for her, well, we see another year happening as the story goes on with her and Frank. I want to call him Jack.
I know.
Do not call him Jack. But he hasn't seen her in 2 years, and so we didn't really get to see all of that. All that entails that kind of, I guess, the 9 months that they're together, where it's like her getting back into the swing of things. We touched on it a little bit. End of second season where she comes back and all that. But how did you feel overall about her return and them going to America as well?
Yeah, with Claire, it's like obviously, you root for her and everything, but at the same time, I felt really bad for Frank.
Yeah.
I felt like last season it was hard for me to sympathize with Frank because you wanted Claire and Jamie
back together.
Yeah, it's like that's my only goal. But now seeing that Claire is supposed to be moving on because she made that promise to Frank, seeing how she was kind of reacting with him was, I felt bad for him. But obviously she's kind of not in her comfort zone either. Like we saw with when she was meeting his boss and the way they were just demeaning her.
Casual sexism of the 20th century.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So you're like, she's obviously not in her area. She's somebody who's so strong and outspoken, and she can't be that person where they're living, in society. But I liked how they kind of showed her trying and making an effort.
Yeah.
But it's obvious that she's not just going to forget Jamie and get over him.
Yeah.
So, I
think there's, for every century, there's something that women kind of have to deal with. And so,
right. Yeah.
Whereas back, at least when she was in Jamie's time, of course, she was still dealing with a lot of the same issues, but she could speak up about it.
Right.
And, and she could convince Jamie to kind of stand up for her around certain scenarios of, like, men attempting to, like, rape women or talking down to them, or even, being able to punch back when he tried to spank her and that kind of stuff. So there was, like, a strange type of, I think, open-mindedness that she had become accustomed to with Jamie.
Right.
And there is a certain amount of, like, strict rules that are in place when it comes to Frank. And just in terms of how society is built and how women are structured to be. Like, even with the scene with Millie, her neighbor.
Right.
Like all of just the casualness of like, well, this is how you're supposed to be, and no surprises for the man, and you know, what's your husband going to think that you're cooking in the fireplace? That's just not something that she really has had to think about in a few years. And so getting back into that kind of mindset of not being able to be brazen is got to be a big setback. I mean, overall, with Frank, I do feel a lot of sympathy for Frank, but I also understand that, like, for Claire, he looks like the man who like raped her husband.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I hear you.
It's like a lot. I would feel like that would be a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Of like, here's this man who I did love for all these years,
right.
and then for 2 years I was gone, and the face of this man is the man who terrorized me and my husband and the people I loved for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So I understand why she's kind of like,
don't touch me.
Don't touch me. Like, the last time someone like you touched me, they were like pushing me over a table.
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. But she also did make that promise, and I also think that promise has been skewed or not skewed, but it has been damaging because she is not allowed to talk about the past.
Right.
And I think when Frank finally realizes, he's like, we probably need to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, I spent 9 months not talking about it. So at this point, I'm keeping my promise, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And also, he just such a low blow with that. I'm not the one who's been fucking other people.
Oh, that was bad. I know. And she threw the ashtray at him, and I was like, yeah, that.
Yeah, I mean, that was like,
you deserved it. You deserved. Yeah. But I did like how he said to her, like, go or stay, I don't care, but do it because you want to be here. You know, so I kind of liked that it kind of put the ball back in her court. Like, if you don't want to be with me, if you don't want to raise us as our child, like, that's fine. I'm not. No, I'm not forcing you to be here. You know. But yeah, I think she's very valid in how she feels. Obviously, you know, but I think it would have been smart for them to at least address what was happening, because just burying it obviously was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. So. I mean, I do give credit to Frank for deciding to reach out to the Reverend and get information on what happened to Jamie, because that is kind of setting it up where at least she'll know. I think he's kind of had to reconcile that she's just not going to let go of it. You know, she's having the man's child. A child came out with ginger hair. Yeah. So that baby, like, is going to constantly remind her of Jamie. And so she has to I think he kind of has to realize, okay, well, we have to be able to come to an agreement. But I also think that the only reason they're sticking together is because of the baby, which is kind of what was implied when they were talking about, like, well, it'll be a new start and we can, you know, consider this a new beginning. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. I feel like that never turns out well. I feel like Frank is sticking with her because he loves her. You know, he didn't go through what she went through, obviously. He didn't fall in love with somebody else. But I think she's sticking around because she feels like she should be there in whatever, you know, she feels like this is where I should be. I should love this man. I should be with him, but her heart isn't in it. And so it's like, you know, constantly a battle of your heart and your head, I guess, at this point. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how their relationship plays out, you know, how they kind of, are they going to get to the point where it seems like she has forgotten about Jamie and this child is something that, you know, I don't see that happening, because like you said, every time she looks at the child, she's going to think of Jamie. So how can you not think of him? But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how those characters have a relationship. And
it was kind of implied last season that their marriage was not easy, because we jumped so far. We jumped to Frank's death in season 2, which I kind of wish they hadn't done.
Right. I agree with you.
Because now I kind of know where, at least where that storyline is going, and then that annoying daughter's coming back, and maybe they recast her. I'm sorry. I hate talking. I hate wishing that actors don't have jobs, but I thought she was poorly cast. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Were there any other thoughts on their storyline?
Not really, but I do want to touch. I do agree with you that I wish they hadn't jumped that far ahead in season 2, just because I felt like it was jarring. Now, here, seeing it, you know, it took me as a viewer kind of a minute to adjust, saying like, wait, okay, hold on, back up. Last time I saw the daughter, Brianna, was what, like 18 or something, or around that age?
She was going to college.
Right.
And she met that kid.
Yeah.
Who also was a descent who might be related in some way or something.
I felt like it was I felt like it was just a kind of a weird jump, and obviously it is what it is, but that kind of took me a while to kind of as a viewer get back into it, saying like, okay, now we're 18 years behind of what we last saw. So that was a little weird, but I think that's really all I had thought about Claire's just her storyline of what we saw in the first episode. So yeah, I
will say I am excited to see that the seed was planted for her to become a doctor. And that like horrible scene with that man, where she was like, "I will show you."
Yes.
You kind of just see her be like, "I will. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I'm going to become a doctor then." Because just that whole monologue he had about like, "Isn't this enough now? Don't you feel more complete now that you're just a mom?"
That was
I was like, ugh.
I know that was really hard to watch, but I did like how Frank did kind of stick up for her a little bit when he was like, "Oh, well, she was actually in the war," or whatever. And then I thought it said a lot about how she wanted to kind of, I guess, I don't want to say honor Frank, but the fact that she didn't go push back, she just smiled and said, "Yes, you're right, that But
it said a lot too that he put his hand on her shoulder, and because I know when people do that to me, that's like a signal of like, don't talk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh.
See, that's interesting, because when I watched it, I took it as like a signal of like support, like I'm here with you, I'm gonna stick up, like we're gonna be okay. That's how I kind of watched it, but maybe I just wanted to see that, so it's interesting. But
the first time he did it, it was like a move of support, like he just put his hand there, and then the guy said something else. I think about like giving up your career to become a mom, and I saw him make this movement of like kind of like a grip, and I was like, oh, so it is a support move, but it's also like a don't.
Yeah. Well, and then it's interesting too that she put her hand on his hand too. So was she acknowledging, like,
it seemed like I'm acknowledging it, but I'm also holding on because I definitely want to say some crap. So I don't know. We're talking a lot about hand acting.
Yeah, sorry.
Now, but it was just something that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
But speaking of Tobias Menzies and his amazing job of making me love Frank again. Yeah. Let's go back back in time to Jamie.
Okay.
And the Battle of
Jamie Fraser.
Culloden.
Yes.
Who feel like Battle of Culloden's been circling since episode 1. It's always been the kind of thing that we all knew we were getting to, and it's finally here. And I don't know, how'd you feel about it?
I felt awful about it, to be honest. Like, just watching, the word I wrote down when watching was just brutal. Like, it was a brutal opening. Obviously, I mean, war in any scene is going to be brutal, but especially what they were doing back then, where you're just running into each other, like just a mass slaughter is what it looked like to me, and seeing all of these guys, like all these characters and people that we loved, watching them and how much they wanted to win this war, all of a sudden just laying all over the battlefield dead was really hard. I thought it was a good scene to kind of show what happened, but it was pretty brutal to watch, I think. And especially Jamie on the verge of death too. Like, as a viewer, as a fan, you don't want to see that ever. So,
no.
Yeah.
I liked that they kind of set it up as a reminder of like, hey, they lose this battle. Yeah. Like, from jump, it's just the British coming through and stabbing anyone that shows any sign of life. And so I was like, oh, right, this is something where they do not win this. And so I knew that, we all kind of know, like, well, Jamie's not going to die.
Right.
So I kind of just want to see, like, where's Jamie? And so to see him, like, under the body of the Redcoat, and I will say this, I had no idea. I was just like, oh, he covered himself with that British man's body. Cool. Oh, flashbacks. Cool. And I thought it was a really good way of showing the war without having to make it like, Braveheart, bludgeoning and guts and blood everywhere. Yeah. Where it also, it's a Starz TV show, so they don't really have a budget for like Game of Thrones style. Right. Battle of the Bastards type of thing. So, and I appreciate that because I kind of don't need to see anyone like bludgeon a horse.
Right. Yeah. We'll pass.
I get it with the blood on the shirt and the sticking of the guy. I get So that was nice to see. But when when it's finally revealed, like throughout the battle, that Jack and Jamie finally did get to face off.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just some random person that got to kill Jack, and that it was Jamie. I was like, yes.
Yes. Did it. I know. Yeah, and I kind of, honestly, when you're thinking about Jack and what a huge character he is and has been for Jamie, especially, and for Claire, it's like, it's interesting that to me, it didn't feel like it was this like big enough of like a reveal of the death. Like, so I don't know if maybe that was just me watching it and there was just a lot going on, or the fact that they didn't reveal it till the very end. Like you said, you didn't even know that until the very end. We saw it was him. But I was kind of expecting when, you know, the past season, when I'm thinking about, okay, when he finally dies, I was expecting it to be this bigger, like grand thing. Yeah. So I don't know, you know, what that says that it wasn't huge, but I liked in the beginning where they kind of showed Jamie's, I don't want to say like course of him like thinking of what was going on, but we saw of his flashbacks. And then there was this minute when he remembered Claire.
Yeah, and that she was gone.
Yeah, and it was just like that emotion from him, and that speaks to Sam, obviously, and like his acting ability. But I liked how they kind of showed he thought about all of his friends and what he was fighting for and everything, and then finally saw Claire and just that emotion that came out from him. And I liked how they threw a little bit of comedic interference in there when he runs into Murtaugh and they're like, hey, like, where have you been? Have you been drinking whiskey or what? And I'm like, that's my guy. Like,
yes, he's like, you know, we're still gonna talk shit even though we
we're in the
might
middle
die.
of a war.
Yeah.
So I liked that, how they kind of showed him, like we got to see it through Jamie's viewpoint and memory. So I liked how they did that. I thought that was nicely done. But
I think I will say that I understand why they started to kind of like cut back on Captain Blackjack, because they even started in season 2. I think the first 2 or 3 episodes we don't really see him. Yeah. And so I understand why, because they have to reintroduce Frank. And as an audience member, I know that if I'm seeing Tobias Menzies be like evil, bad Blackjack in the past all the time. Yeah. And then in the same episode, I have to go and watch him be Frank. My brain might explode. I'd be like, I don't know. I can't have that much sympathy for Frank because I'm seeing his face.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's a good point.
I get why that probably attributed to why they kind of cut the death of Captain Jack so short, and also because we already knew it was coming. We knew that was the day he was going to die. And I think Tobias did a lot with that death scene of just like even reaching out. Yeah. And even though it kind of like makes you want to be like, don't touch him.
I know, and Jamie leaned in too because he was obviously hurting.
He was also tired. Yeah. But it also is kind of like when you're at death anyway, it's just kind of like whatever. Yeah. Like,
just get it over with.
Just die in each other's arms. I hate you, you bastard. So I get that, but I love so much that they still are able to find comedic elements with even death scenes, or when we get Rupert and he finally finds Jamie, and I was like, oh, thank God. I know. Thank God he found Jamie. Yeah. Because Jamie was hallucinating Claire, and he was at his end.
Ready to go. Yeah. And I wonder, it's like, when I was watching the episode, I kind of thought, is this some sort of, are we kind of saying that in the end, Jack in a way saved Jamie with, I don't know, keeping him, having that body on top of him, keeping him warm. Obviously it was snowing, or if he covered up him enough to where the soldiers didn't notice that he was still like, I don't know. That was just me kind of like trying to pick at it, but
if they were saying that, I think it was kind of like, it was still kind of a stick to Jack, because that's not something that Jack would want. I think he would definitely have wanted Jamie to, suffer and slowly just be stabbed and bleed out to death. I think that would be like his main thing, or even that he would get to do it, like he would get to stick him in. So I'm not going to give Jack too much credit.
Oh yeah,
for the
no,
savior of Jamie.
I don't think he like was going, hey, maybe I could have this.
No,
but just maybe
it just worked out that way.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think. I mean, isn't that what you're supposed to do if you're in that type of situation? Is cover your body with like another dead body
of your nemesis. Yeah.
Even better if it's your nemesis. Yeah. Why not? I mean, they're not gonna, because they're not gonna. stick that body.
Right.
If there was another body on top of you and it happened to be breathing, they might stick in and through and just like go right through. So it kind of does save him that it was like a redcoat on top of him.
Yeah.
So Rupert drags him back to, that was the house that he used for, that's where Claire was using it like as a hospital at one point.
Oh.
At the beginning of, before they got to the Battle of Culloden, I thought.
I didn't make that connection. I thought it was just a random
place they found.
But yeah, maybe
I think that was the one where they were originally stationed at the beginning of the battle, before they started to actually, like when Claire was still there working like, as a medic.
It would make sense that, the fact that they would know where it was at, obviously with everybody bleeding out and almost dying, it would make sense that they'd go to a place that they're familiar with. They know the surroundings. So yeah, probably.
Yeah, and Rupert kind of gives a lowdown to Jamie of just like, we don't know our ties.
Yeah.
I don't forgive you for Dougal.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm blanking on a part of that scene, but it was pretty simple of just like they go back and then the Redcoats pretty much within the day find them, right?
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was interesting too that obviously Rupert seemed to be in the best shape of all of them as far as not almost dying, and that they had said to him, I don't know if it was Jamie or somebody said to him, you like leave if you need to, like you still have time to get out of here, we can't walk, we're gonna stay here till somebody finds us, but you can go. And the fact that Rupert was like, nope, not leaving, you know, I'm staying here. And I think it says a lot to those guys and just their loyalty for each other. We've seen since the very beginning, even though they have these things where Rupert was mad at Jamie for Dougal's death or whatever, and he's maybe holding on to these things, the fact that he was I'm going down with the ship, said a lot.
He's like, this is my family, this is my home, and I'm gonna die with you people.
I know.
I was very relieved that we didn't have to deal with King James.
Yes. We saw him say "mark me" like one time.
And then I was like, thank you, goodbye. I don't want to see you ever again. No offense. He's just like, I'm sure that actor is great, but the character is so annoying.
Drives me nuts.
Him and Brianna, those two characters, are so annoying. So that was nice to just kind of get out. I was very appreciative of the fact that we didn't have to deal with like a bunch of like talking with King James.
Right.
And that was just kind of like as a secondary flashback. But they end up with the Redcoats coming in. And is there honor in being shot? I guess yes.
Yeah, when I was thinking that, I was just thinking of how weird the whole situation is, how they're like, oh, you have an hour. Like, we're going to kill you in an hour, and, we're not going to hang you. We're going to shoot you like you're on the battlefield kind of thing, right?
Okay.
We're not, like, trapping you and hanging you. We're going to shoot you like you're on the battlefield. And if you need to write a letter, like, let us know, and we'll give you some paper and a pen.
Yeah, that was actually really, really sweet. I guess that I've never considered that there is more honor in being shot, but I guess it is quicker.
Yeah, that's true. And
so it's more of a you're dead and done versus like being hanged and kind of like going through the struggle of it and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel so bad for those little boys.
Oh gosh, I know. That was awful. You know, I thought they both did a really good job too, because as actors, because when that scene was happening, I kind of thought, like, put myself in their shoes. Like, what if that was you and you're like, you're going to die in an hour, you're gonna be shot in an hour,
and you barely lived.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I liked how they were still trying to save them. Like, the guys knew that, okay, our fate's sealed, but let's at least try to save these guys. And that was extra brutal to kind of see that. But I liked how all of the guys that were there that were going to be shot were kind of like, yeah, I'll go next, kind of stepping up and having that honor until the very end. And then just when it was Rupert's turn and he was talking about Angus and he said, I'll get to see him again. That I was like, oh yeah, Angus. I forgot about how much I loved Rupert and Angus together.
And then Jamie was like, well, I'll see you in a minute. Essentially, and you're like, oh God. And I think once I knew Rupert was dead, I was like, oh God, Jamie has no one now.
Right.
Like, no one. Even if he's able to make it home to his sister, like, she's all he has, And so I didn't blame him for being like, kill me.
Yeah.
Like, I want to die. I have nothing else to live for. I don't know if I'm ever going to see my wife and child.
Yeah.
And I knew he knew going into it that there was a chance that this was the day he was going to die. And he's like, I already accepted it. So for him to be that good guy way back when, came back and bit him in the ass to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't what he wanted.
Right.
But I was, when I saw the preview, I was like, oh, that's going to come. That's the thing that saves him. Because everyone was kind of talking about leading up to the series premiere, how does Jamie survive this? And it turns out, by convenience of storytelling, that the soldier sent to assassinate everyone is also brother of, was it John William Gray?
I said
Gray?
William Gray,
William
but
Gray.
maybe it's John William. I don't know.
It might just
I
be
think it's
William Gray. I add Johns sometimes to names. It's a very common name. So, to William Gray, who Jamie spared and who swore a debt of honor to Jamie that he would return the favor should the time ever come.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting scene too. You know, speaking of just like timing too, because the soldier that was going to execute him was literally at the door, like ready to go out when he heard Fraser, and you know, so it's like just the timing of that. But also, I thought it's interesting how, you know, the soldier had such allegiance to the king or his commander, whoever sent him to kill everyone.
Lord of Cumberland.
Yes.
There we go.
He had such allegiance to him, to the fact that he wasn't going to spare these two boys, because he said, you know, this guy said no exceptions. Like, we're killing everyone, no exceptions. I don't care how young those boys are. But then yet when it came to Jamie and this debt of honor that he has with his family, like somehow that trumped what he had just said before. So I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of showed to him and how much he honored this debt of honor.
Yeah.
You know?
Blood is thicker than water.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think, that was really interesting to see that he, like, even when people were like, well, we can just put him under an alias, like, we don't have to save this man.
Right.
He was like, nah, it's not even my debt of honor. It's my brother's debt of honor, but he told me about it, and so I have to agree.
Yeah, I know.
Basically, you know, this is treason because I'm directly like disobeying an order.
Yeah. And even after Jamie's like, no, like, I won't tell anyone, like, just kill me. he's like, no, you're living.
This is fate worse than death, my friend. You got to keep going. So he just gets him like a load of hay and gets a soldier and sends him back.
Yep.
For, I don't know, day and night. Because that was a long trek to the Battle of Culloden from Lollybrook.
Yes.
So for him to put him in some hay, the fact that he didn't bleed out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what he said. He's like, well, maybe he'll probably bleed out anyway.
Right.
Was amazing. But we get to see him come back. And
yeah, I know. And he gets to see his sister and brother-in-law, right? Brother-in-law again. And I'm thinking, anytime I see stuff on shows or movies and it's like they're hugging and saying hi, I'm like, he is like, get him out and stitch him up or something. He's like dying.
He is dying.
Save your hugging for later.
How do you do blood transfusions back then? Like, can you do it?
Yeah.
Like, will you do it? Claire's not there. She's not going to show you. But it was nice to see that he, even though he is all alone, pretty much, except for his sister and his brother-in-law, that he's alive.
Yeah.
You know, and he made it.
Yeah.
So he didn't die. So it'll be good to see when Claire has that realization when she goes to try and find him and realizes that he might still be alive. If he didn't die there, then there might be a chance for her to go back and get to him. I don't know how that works timey-wimey wise, but
I know, and especially because we've already seen her 18 years in the future to where she still doesn't know. So is that 18 years on Jamie's end? And then I'm still
So does that mean that Frank just never told her that he found the information about Jamie?
I don't know.
Because that would be tragic.
That would be really bad. Yeah. And then, because we see Brianna say in the clip for whatever's coming, I don't know if it's next week, if they're going to jump that far ahead, or if it's just in this season, how she says, like, we're going to find out what happened. So that leads me to believe that Claire never found out, doesn't know.
Oh, that sucks.
Which is weird.
Frank.
And I know. So I wonder, it's going to be interesting to see if Frank did find out and chose to hide that from Claire. Maybe things were starting to get good between them. Yeah. And he didn't want to let that out there.
And it's been slightly hinted that sometimes Frank has those kind of Jack Black tendencies. Or not Jack Black, Black Jack. not the comedian Jack Black, Jack Randall. Tendencies, like he has a little bit of darkness to him, which is kind of like, oh well, that makes sense. I mean, that's his like great grandfather.
It's in the bloodline,
or not grandfather, but granduncle, because it's his brother who had the child, and then the brother died, right? Yeah, and then Jack was going to take over. Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. So, but I don't know. Should we go ahead into predictions?
Sure. Yeah, I haven't even thought of that, but yeah. Let's go.
All right.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
You want to start it off?
Sure. No, yeah, you go. I haven't even thought about it, so give me a second.
I haven't thought about it either. I'm just going to try to not go off of the preview from last week. Well, I think the thing I'm most excited about seeing is, I mean, cool, yeah, Claire's mom. Being a mom is really cool, you guys. I'm not knocking this, but I'm really excited to see her like go on that doctor path, because I think I'm all for women breaking tides and coming through and breaking glass ceilings, and so to see her, especially with what they presented in the first episode of what she's going against culturally, become a doctor in the next 18 years is going to be really exciting. I also I think about that girl that Jamie left way back when, that it was kind of implied that he might end up being with her in the future. And I'm not really excited to see that. But I'm very curious to see like how Jamie's going to move on, and if he's going to move on. And they kind of talk about in the previews about how he hasn't laid with a woman in like 6 years or something like that. Yeah, great, I guess.
As somebody who ships Jamie and Claire, I am all for that.
Yeah, I'm all for your celibacy, Jamie. So, because I mean, that's just not what's happening on Claire. Well, I don't know. Claire could be not having sex with Frank. That'd be really weird. But yeah, I'm curious to see like what these next 18 years are going to bring. I already kind of know Claire's end, and so I kind of want to see Jamie's.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think that just what our conversation has led to, I'm going to say that Claire doesn't find out what happens with Jamie. I haven't read the book, so I don't know if that's the way it goes.
No spoilers for the books.
Yes. But I'm going to say that she doesn't find out, that in a way she moves on and kind of moves on to other aspects of her life, like becoming a doctor and raising her daughter. And that's not that she ever forgets about Jamie, but that it's kind of not at the forefront of her mind like it has been. And Jamie, we saw him in the future with like super long hair.
Super long.
Not that great of a look for him. I don't think so.
There's not much that Sam Heughan could do to be unattractive. I mean,
good point, but so it seems to me they're kind of painting him like somebody who's completely lost. Like it seems like he's just like given up. Like I guess I'm alive, but not really living, kind of thing. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to take him a while to get back into enjoying life if he ever does that without Claire.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think it's going to definitely be a theme of broken people this season, of like a life only sounds so poetic, half-lived. And so what does that mean for each of them? Like, does that mean for Claire, does she, take on kind of like what's normally considered like a male plot point of getting so involved with her career that she kind of like lets her family fall to the wayside? And does Jamie end up becoming, like a rapscallion? No. Like a Don Juan. There we go. I was like, I have to find this word. Of just kind of like never really being able to commit to anyone, and kind of just never really grounding himself in life. Like, what does his next 18 years mean? Like, can they in some way both recover from it? With Claire, it seems less likely, and with Jamie, it's kind of unknown. So I think it'll be really exciting to watch. Yeah. I mean, I don't really like the beard. I don't really like the long hair, but he's so attractive.
He is. No, he still is. It's just,
just not much.
Yeah.
Not much you can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, anyways.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm excited. We're back.
That about wraps it up. We're back. for 12 more episodes of Outlander Season 3. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Emily, where can they find you?
On Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at OMG. It's MLE.
All right, guys, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Adrian Snow, MSADRINSNOW. You can also catch me on Popcorn Talk on Fridays for the Unproduced Table Read. All right, so I think we're doing a British comedy again this week. Cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next Sunday.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.